From high atop Rocky Road in Moab, Utah, it's KZMU News. I'm Molly Marcello. The pending development of nearly 200 acres for residential and commercial interests along Kane Creek Boulevard has sparked outrage in recent weeks. Community members have raised many questions over its potential impacts to the environment, infrastructure, and even Moab's socioeconomic future. Local journalist Jon Kovash raises another question. Where's the money flowing? By tracking down public records, Kovash has found that the developers of the Kane Creek project have made substantial donations to Grand County's Republican Party, and they've been establishing clout with Utah legislators. Today on the news, we speak with Kovash about his research. As far as you can tell from your research, when did this cash flow first start?
It started in the 2022 election when almost all of the county GOP campaign budget came from two out-of-town donors, $6,000 from Craig Weston, the lead Kane Creek development partner, and $5,000 from the Curtis for Congress campaign. Those funds basically covered the entire campaign for now Commissioner Mike McCurdy. Weston also gave $500 to Jamison Wiggins, the winning candidate for sheriff. And that was a pivotal election in which incumbent county attorney Christina Sloan was defeated by Stephen Stocks, and Mike McCurdy and Bill Winfield were elected to the county commission in tight races. Now, county Democrats complained back then that the Republican candidates were failing to comply with identifying their donors. Those candidates eventually complied, but the donors remained secret until recently when Kane Creek opponents unearthed the disclosure documents.
So I understand that these donations continued the following year into 2023, including a big surge of outside money from prominent Utah Republicans.
That is true. In 2023, it was more of the same. Weston, primarily under different LLCs that all had his home address, gave another $4,000 to the county GOP. In addition, donations poured in from a who's who of Utah Republicans. $1,000 donors included Governor Spencer Cox, Speaker of the House Brad Wilson, Senator Stuart Adams, Senator David Hinkins, and Representative Phil Lyman, who Moab is familiar with. According to public records, the Grand County GOP now has a $30,000 war chest.
So you've discovered that some of the legislators who made those donations are the same lawmakers who have targeted our local ordinances in Grand County with punitive legislation.
Yes, Phil Lyman was instrumental in putting a stop to Moab using some of our TRT funding for economic development instead of tourist marketing. David Hinkins has introduced SB 172, which could force Grand County to allow gravel mining on Kane Creek, permit or not, because gravel is, quote, a critical infrastructure material. One county official opined that the legislature went from being mildly annoyed with us to being downright vindictive and vengeful.
The Kane Creek developers have publicly and repeatedly stated that they want to help with local affordable housing, and they've even suggested that they will make, quote, large donations toward that cause. In your opinion, how credible is that, and are they even qualified to create such workforce housing?
That's a question that's certainly been asked by many. Craig Weston has created numerous public faces. The partnership is oxymoronically named Kane Creek Preservation and Development, but they subsequently dubbed themselves the Utah Workforce Housing Alliance, which at the moment has 7 web URLs that show only a blank gray screen and a demand for a password. And there's no evidence that they have experience creating workforce housing and no apparent workforce housing component in their development plans, although they have promised, quote, housing at all price points. But housing is currently a trendy issue with Governor Cox and the legislature, and the state now has a raft of housing-related agencies, and several Utah nonprofits have also materialized to advocate for housing.
How are the Kane Creek developers wielding money or, influence at the state level?
For starters, the Kane Creek developers are clients of Election Hive, which is an all-purpose and highly connected Utah lobbying and campaigning machine. Election Hive clients also include some powerful Utah Republicans, including Governor Cox, Senate President Stuart Adams, House Speaker Brad Wilson, Senator Dan McKay, and Representative Ken Ivory. McKay is proposing to grant the Kane Creek developers, under yet another moniker, Utah Workforce Housing Advocates, $2.5 million in state funds to educate the public about housing. In the application, Weston told lawmakers he wants to advocate for housing by endorsing specific legislation.
In what other ways are legislators targeting Moab for more development?
Well, Ken Ivory is pushing H.R. 19, which some have dubbed the McMansion Subsidy Act, which could pave the way for resort development on BLM lands adjacent to popular tourist towns like Moab. Senator Curtis Bramble, who's also become infamous in Moab, in particular has sponsored bills that specifically target Moab. One bill rolled back Moab's efforts to curb ATV impacts. More recently, he got a bill passed that targeted only one piece of property in the entire state, which was, guess, the Kane Creek development parcel. The bill did away with county authority over the Kane Creek Improvement District. In the past, Bramble has served on the board of ALEC, the Koch brother-funded and controversial American Legislative Exchange Council. Many observers of Moab politics have come to conclude that the legislature delights in targeting Moab simply because they love to trigger the libs. But there is much evidence to suggest that there's also a broad effort to pave the way in the name of workforce housing for more resort development in the most desirable rural locations. And a significant number of Utah legislators are in the development business.
This is a detailed report on trying to untangle a web of money and influence. Thank you so much.
Glad to be here.
Jon Kovash, local journalist who has been following the money flow around the Kane Creek development for KZMU News.